Hello, Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, your city, Psychology Today will pop up, click on that, and it will have therapists in your area. Also, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other damn therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. Okay, wow. So, action-packed week. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much to you guys. You guys are amazing, and I love you very much. Thank you so much for doing the hard work. I have received some really beautiful letters and cards. Thank you cards. And I just wanted to say thank you because you did the hard work. So good job. Keep going. Keep being awesome. Keep healing. Keep finding who you are. Keep doing it. So anyway, I just want to say thanks to you guys. You guys are amazing. And I really appreciate you because what people don't understand is behind the scenes, I'm doing 3 hours of work on this show, like every week, like prepping and finding articles and answering questions, answering emails, that type of thing. So when I hear that you guys are doing the work and not just surviving, but thriving and really living your best life, I just thank you. Good job, guys. Keep going. So, okay, that out of the way. All right. So Shahida, I hope I'm saying her name right. Shahida Arabi's new book is coming out. This is not the new book. This is the old book. Her new book is coming out October 20th. You can go to Amazon and pre-order it. And I will be doing that actually today. I have not had a chance to do it, but I want to. So her books are amazing. So read her stuff. Susanna Quintana, You're Still That Girl is also available on Amazon. I believe it's available in bookstores now. So there is that. My books, of course, and I'm still working on the other one. I swear to God, I'm going to get it out. But my books are available on Amazon and Kindle and yada, yada, yada. A great book if you are separating, divorcing your abuser is Splitting. And it's by Bill Eddy and Randy Krieger, who wrote Stop Walking on Eggshells. Amazing. This is what you need to read if you're going to be divorcing somebody with a disorder so that you understand it's not going to be fun. So yeah, good book. Get it. Okay. That's all out of the way. Fabulous. People have been asking me, are you going to go back on tour? Well, some year. Yeah. When it's safe. So as soon as, COVID numbers go down, we figure out the new normal, then I would be happy to go back on tour, but I don't know how to do a meet and greet and meet people when they're still like 6 feet social distancing, and I'm a hugger, so I don't know how that would work. So we'll figure it out. Anyway, okay. So if you have questions, just go ahead and write question and then ask your question, and then John will pop it up on the monitor so I can see what the question is when I start answering questions at the half hour. All right. So today, misdiagnosis. So what do I mean? Why is this important to talk about? Well, here's the deal. My profession, unfortunately, attracts a lot of narcissists. It does. And it attracts a lot of, and I'm talking malignant guys. I'm not talking like, traits of. I'm talking full-blown malignant narcissists and borderlines. It's the power differential. So when you go to get a diagnosis, the thing of it is that they don't teach psychology in school. I wish to God they did in high school. Wouldn't that have been nice to kind of be like, oh, that's what's wrong with my family. Holy shit, figure that out and then go from there. But they don't teach that in school. And so when we get out into the world and we think there's something wrong with us, it turns out, no, it's not us. We might have a physical issue, or we might have family that's causing this. So education is the key. Education is totally the key. So before diagnosing yourself with a disorder, I strongly suggest you make sure you're not surrounded by assholes, and or you really look into what you think you have going on with you so you can look at the criteria and see if it matches or not. So let's talk about some misdiagnosing that tends to go on in the psychological world here. So, okay. So the first and the most obvious one is PTSD, CPTSD, and borderline. And I kind of talked about that last week. So PTSD has got some maladaptive behaviors that happen when there is a great deal of trauma. Borderline has got a huge amount of maladaptive behaviors that happens when there's a great deal of trauma. Borderline is based in trauma. So if somebody's going to give you the diagnosis of borderline, they had goddamn well better be working on the trauma. Serious as a heart attack. Yes, you want to work on the behaviors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you got to be working on the original wound over here to fix the behaviors, because this is what we created to keep us safe maladaptively in a crazy dysfunctional environment. And if the clinician is not working on the trauma, you need to get a different clinician. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. Also, I've had people writing in saying, this was my experience. So going in to see a psychiatrist. Now, here's the problem. In the old days, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, the psychiatrists also did talk therapy. They don't really do that anymore. They're just prescription writing machines. It's like, you're in there for 15 minutes. Thank you. That'll be $350, $400, $600. They give you your script and they push you out the door. And they will sometimes diagnose people like, you know, within 5 minutes of talking to them. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, sometimes you can, because if somebody comes in with just classic stereotypical behavior, you can be like, oh, okay, that's what's going on with them. But sometimes it's like, if there's trauma going on, you can't just assume that this person is, quote unquote, just borderline, right? So that pisses me off when they're like writing people off, like literally writing them off with a script and handing them a script and not really going, what's really going on? What was the family of origin? You've got to do a whole biopsychosocial. You got to talk about, well, what was your family of origin like? What was your relationship with your mom and dad like? What was your relationship with your siblings like? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to get a really good picture. And anyway, you want someone who's thorough. And this is why I'm saying about misdiagnosis, because if you get a psychiatrist that's just like, you know, in it for the Benjamins, and all they're doing is writing a script and shoving you out the door and not bothering to find out what is going on. So that happens a lot. And that pisses me off because, again, a lot of anxiety, depression. Okay, what's going on with the family of origin? Here's something to think about. And I was reading this the other day and I was just like, oh, does that remind me of my childhood? So when I was a little kid, I would throw up every day before school. Why? Because my dad was batshit crazy. And he had shoved me into a very small school with a bunch of bullies, and I was getting bullied every day. And so I would throw up literally on the drive to school. 2 years, I would throw up every single day. Well, guess what? Stomach aches and headaches are a classic indication in children that there is depression and anxiety going on. Why don't they teach this to parents so that they can be alert and looking for this stuff? I can't tell you the number of times parents have come in, sat on my couch. Well, I don't understand. Johnny or Jeanette or whatever is, you know, they're having stomach issues, and ding, that's my immediate, okay, what's going on? Where's the abuse? What's happening? Where's the bullying? What's going on? Why is this child anxious? What's going on? And they don't fucking teach it in school. And I'm just, don't get me started, because that'll be a whole other hour-long plus thing. So, okay. So this is why you got to make sure you get with somebody who knows what the hell they're doing, is looking for, you know, things that could be red flags, right? So, yeah. So, okay. So there's a whole, so, okay. So a lot of times kids who come in, I'm sorry, I've had a lot of caffeine today. Kids who come in with the, stomach aches and the headaches, they get made fun of by the parents, especially the narcissistic parent, because they don't want to be bothered. And they punish the kid for being sick in the morning, or they punish the kid for having his headache, or they tell the child, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't feel that way. I'm sorry. How invalidating is that? Fuck you, asshole. If I could have done that when I was a kid, I probably would have ended up dead. But, you know, the point being is that parents are not taught that this is what anxiety and depression look like in a child. You know, so, and sometimes they go to clinicians and they try to find help for the kid, but the clinician doesn't even know what they're doing. So you've got to research this stuff. You have to be your own best advocate. So let's talk about some other diagnoses stuff that gets confused with each other. Okay, so depression can be caused by hormones. It can be also caused by hypothyroidism. Hyper is where the thyroid is acting too much, and we're going to talk about that. Hypo is when it's not doing enough, okay? So if there is mental health issues going on and they're not clear-cut, I always tell people, go get a physical. Let us rule out any medical, physical, chemical issue going on first, so that we can make sure that that's not what's the problem. And in some cases, That is exactly what is the problem. In one case, I sent a person to get a physical, and it turned out that they had the nodules, precancerous nodules all over their thyroid, and it wasn't functioning properly, and that was causing the mood swings, and that was causing the depression, and I'm like, holy shit, thank God I did that for them. Do you see where I'm going with that? So you want to rule out anything physical first. And that's why when you're talking to a client, and I'm talking to the clinicians right now, so if any of you are clinicians out here, here's clue number one. When you're talking to the client, get kind of a medical history, background, what's going on? Is there a family history of this? Is there a family history of that? Is there a family history of hypo or hyperthyroidism? Is there a family history of hormone issues? Is there a family? Do you see where I'm going with that? So, okay, hyperthyroidism, when the thyroid is doing too much, it's producing too much, it causes mood swings. What does that mimic? Bipolar. So oftentimes people will get a diagnosis of bipolar or borderline. They'll get diagnosed with bipolar or borderline when in fact they're having thyroid issues. So always, 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 always get a physical at least once or twice in a 10-year period. That would be good. I mean, honestly, I think you should be doing it once every 3 years, I think is what the recommendation is. But get a physical. Find out what your functioning is on all different levels. How is your thyroid functioning? How are your hormone levels? If the hormones are off, if there's too much testosterone, you're going to be very aggressive. You're going to be really like angry all the time and aggressive. If there's not enough testosterone, you're going to be fatigued. You're going to have all sorts of stuff going on. It can mimic depression. You're not going to be interested in basically anything, and the sexual libido just falls off the map. So there's a bunch of stuff that is medical, not mental health. Although this is what drives me crazy. I really wish our whole medical system would figure it the fuck out that the body and the mind are not separate. They are all one and they depend on each other. So if something is wonky donkey in the body, it's going to be wonky donkey in the mind. So, okay, so hyperthyroidism, it's producing too much. It'll cause mood swings, which will mimic bipolar and can mimic borderline. So if you've got a diagnosis of either one of those, I strongly suggest you go get your levels checked on everything. It's like, how's your thyroid? How's your hormones? How's your blood level? How's your blood sugars? How's your, what's going on with all of this? So hyper causes mood swings. Hypo causes depression. Both can cause anxiety. So there's a whole, racing heart with the hyper. So, racing heart, pounding heart. So feeling like anxiety, panic attacks all the time. And especially if somebody comes in and sits down and goes, I'm having panic attacks, but I can't identify why. There's nothing going on. It's like there's no trauma, no this, no that. This just started. It's, panic attack. I feel like my heart's going to beat out of my chest. Great. Go get a physical. Let's figure this the fuck out. We'll do anxiety as a rule out, but let's go get a physical and figure out why is this stuff happening? It's always chemical. It's always chemical. Our bodies are basically a little chemical factory is what we are. And all of the chemicals rely on all the other systems. And if something's off, everything's going to be off. So, okay. All right. So hyperthyroid, hypothyroid. I hope that explains that. Oh, and I totally forgot to say, Susanna Quintana, speaking of Susanna Quintana, because I cannot counsel people outside of, Arizona, but she can. So, well, she's not counsel, but she's a life coach. She's a narcissist recovery coach. She's amazing. She is the person I recommend when people say, hey, I'm in this country and I really want you for a therapist. And I say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't do that, but here's Susanna. So SusannaQuintana.com, she's your girl. So sorry, just wanted to mention that because I do get a lot of requests for that. So, all right, now the next one that I want to talk about, and this is a real hot button topic because this comes up a lot, narcissism versus autism. So in the old days, Asperger's was its own diagnosis. Now it's on the autism scale. So it's traits of, it's not as, it's not full blown, they're not responding, they're not verbal, they're not this, they're not that. They're able to communicate. So I wanted to read you this article from Psychology Today, which I thought was really interesting because a lot of times people confuse on the autism scale, autism with narcissism. So let me just go through this because I think this is interesting and this should theoretically clear up the confusion. Okay, the essential feature of Asperger's disorder hold on, let me tell you who this article is by first. So this is by Susan Heitler. PhD. This is on Psychology Today by Susan Heitler. It's called Narcissism or Asperger's, How would you diagnose these cases? And they go into a whole bunch of case studies. I'm not going to put you through that, but it was fascinating to read. Okay, so the essential feature of Asperger's disorder is our severe and sustained impairment in social interactions and the development of restrictive, repetitive patterns or behaviors, interests, and activities. So that's the essential thing of lower-end autism. Qualitative impairment in social interaction is manifested by at least two of the following. Marked impairment in the use of multiple nonverbal behaviors such as eye-to-eye contact, facial expression, body posture, and gestures to regulate social interaction. They have a very hard time keeping eye contact. Now, my nephew, my great-nephew, oh my Lord, he's 22. What the hell? He's on the Asperger's spectrum. And yes, that is absolutely how he presents. Failure to develop peer relationships appropriate to developmental level, had trouble making friends, yes. A lack of spontaneous seeking to share enjoyment, interests, or achievements with other people, lack of showing, bringing, or pointing out objects of interest to other people. It's kind of, they're kind of focused, in their own little world. Lack of social or emotional reciprocity. They don't always pick up on emotional cues. And when my great nephew was growing up, it was obvious that there was not that picking up on emotional cues. Like somebody would be upset and it wouldn't even register that the other person was upset, and so that type of thing. And that's Asperger's. But that also can be confused with narcissism, because narcissists intentionally don't register that somebody's upset. But this is a little different. Restricted, repetitive, and stereotyped patterns of behavior, interests, and activities as manifested by at least one of the following. Encompassing preoccupation with one or more stereotyped and restricted patterns of interest that is abnormal either in intensity or focus. So they become like hyper-focused. Apparently inflexible adherence to specific non-functional routines or rituals. So it kind of mimics OCD, but it's not OCD. It's a little different. Stereotyped repetitive motor mannerisms, hand or finger tapping, twisting, complex body movements. That's common with autism. Persistent preoccupation with parts of objects. Yes. Okay, so that's autism. Okay, so I can see how somebody would kind of confuse that not registering the social cues with narcissism. This is narcissism, however. Having an exaggerated sense of self-importance, expected to be recognized as superior without achievements that warrant it, exaggerating the achievements and talents, being preoccupied with fantasies of success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate, believing that you are superior and can only be understood by or associate with equally special people, requiring constant admiration, constantly needing to be told, you're good, you're fabulous, you're wonderful, this, that, and the other thing, having a sense of entitlement, like a million miles wide, expecting special favors and questioning compliance with your expectations. So in other words, if you say jump and you don't say how high, the narcissist will come unglued. Having an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. Okay, this is where people confuse it. There's a big difference. Autism, they do love people. They do have love, they have empathy, they do. It's just sometimes their brain does not recognize the social situation and they can't read or decipher the social norm going on here and how to respond appropriately. That's the difference. It's like these guys, they don't want to recognize it. They don't recognize it. They're not interested in recognizing it, and screw you. That's kind of their attitude. That's the narcissist. Okay, being envious of others and believing that others are envious of you, behaving in an arrogant or haughty manner. Okay, then they go on to do 2 case studies, which I'm not going to bore you with because they're really long. Hang on, but the conclusion I thought was interesting. The bottom line from my perspective is that there is often an overlap between these 2 diagnoses. Is that because some people have both? Yes, you can have both. You can be both narcissism and NPD and Asperger's. You can be BPD and NPD. You can be depressed and NBT. You can have, do you see where I'm going? You can have it's called comorbidity. So you can have any mental health diagnosis and another mental health diagnosis going on at the same time. Excuse me. I did actually take an allergy pill today, so hopefully this will help. Okay. So the label, okay, so the overlapping between the two syndromes, is that because people can have both? Yes. Is the border between the two disorders a fuzzy boundary? So the label is a function of which feature the diagnosis is primarily focusing on. And this is this person talking. In my view, the essential feature of narcissism is a listening defect. I don't know if I agree with that. Narcissistic behavior is behavior that focuses only on the self, what I want, what I think, me. It's all about me, my wants, my needs. Tendencies, or maybe results in deficits in ability to hear others' thoughts, feelings, preferences. When others insist on trying to be heard or seen, the narcissistic tendencies lead to anger. Yes, very much so. As to Asperger's, or the, on the spectrum, I regard the addition of social oddities, avoidance of close social interactions, gaze aversions, and difficulties reading others' feelings as a sign of Asperger's. There is the narcissistic non-listening, may also be present, but that is not an indication of narcissism. It's just an indication of Asperger's, which is where people get confused. And Asperger's individuals do not as often have the social charm that many individuals with narcissistic features have. Paradoxically, people with both diagnoses can be very empathic. I'll disagree with the narcissism. They're only quote unquote empathic when they're mirroring you, and that's not empathy, that's mirroring, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There we go. So, and the bottom line is they can have both. So, but I do think that autism and narcissism often, autism gets misdiagnosed as narcissism because of the not picking up on the social cues. So, and it's not a true narcissism. It's not. It's that sensory overload. They don't have the ability to kind of pick up on the social cues, figure out what's going on, kind of thing. It's hard for them to process that. In talking to my nephew, we would have talks about, how hard it was to socialize and how hard it was to read things right and figure out the appropriate response, because they love their friends, my little guy loves his friends, but it's really sometimes very hard to integrate the picking up on the cues, understanding what's going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there is that. So depression, anxiety, all of those things, if you are going through that and there is no reason, quote unquote, you want to rule out anything physical first, because and trust your gut, guys. How many times have you walked into a doctor's office, whether it was a psychiatrist or a counselor or a PC, primary care physician, and your gut just went, I don't like this person. Nope, that's not what's going on with me, but oh well, they're the professional, I'm just going to go with it. No, listen to your gut. If your gut is saying this, something feels off, I know this is not what's going on, I don't want to be taking all of these pharmaceuticals right off the bat without even figuring it out, then you find somebody else and realize, like I said, the body and the mind is connected. It's not separate. It's like it is our one, it is, because what's going on up here is going on down here. What's going on down here is going on up here. And so you got to make sure that your body is healthy before you decide you've got some diagnosis. Or if somebody, like I said, diagnoses you, you know what I mean? 5 minutes of talking to you doesn't even really bother to dive into the family history, do a biopsychosocial, figure out what the abuse was over here. And they're giving you a personality disorder when in fact you've got PTSD. You have the right to go, fuck you, I'm out of here, and leave and go get a different one. So do you see where I'm going with that? So there's a lot of misdiagnosis, and autism often gets misdiagnosed as narcissism because of the inability to process the social cues. The difference, like I said, is that autistic people generally don't come flying off the handle when they're asking questions and wanting things done. They're not like, comply with me or else, whereas a narcissist is comply with me or else, that kind of thing. So there's that. So you want to make sure that if you get a diagnosis and you do not think it applies, like you're just like, that, I don't feel like that's right. I don't feel like that's me. So 2 things. 1, read up on the diagnosis that they're giving you to see if you even match the criteria. 2, make sure you get a physical. Make sure you go get a physical, clear yourself medically so that you know that there's nothing chemical going on. There's no lack or deficit in hormones. Thyroid is functioning perfectly. Your liver panel is fine. Your kidneys are fine. Everything is good. Your blood sugar is okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to do that. And if you do not like a therapist, if you do not like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anybody, you have the right to fire their ass. I give you my permission. I give you my blessing. You can fire their ass. Absolutely. Because if they're not jiving with you and if they're just throwing something on you and not working with you, then that's no bueno. Basically, what you want is you want a therapist that is going to work with you. It is a collaborative event. It is not, oh, I am this god sitting on this mountaintop. Fuck that narcissistic shit, motherfucker. It's hi. Tell me everything that's going on. What was your mom like? What was your dad like? What do you want to work on? What is most important for you to get handled so that you can move on with your life? That's how I approach it. It is a collaborative event. It is, okay, tell me what you need so that I can give you those tools so that you can do this on your own without me. Because eventually what I want to do is put myself out of work. Honestly, that's what a good therapist does, is you hand them all the tools you can and go, okay, and go. And you got this, and good job, and keep going, and it's scary to me when I see professionals, funny years, diagnosing without finding out the whole story, and or keeping somebody hooked week after week after week after week for years and years and years and years. That's what psychotherapy used to be. That was the whole Freudian lie on a couch and lie on the couch and tell me about your mother and your father. And they would stay on the couch for 25 plus years and never get anywhere because they were never given tools. They were just expected to somehow miraculously, because of the blank screen therapy, get better. Don't work that way. So, which is why insurance companies no longer pay for psychotherapy. So, which I think is a good thing. So, so misdiagnoses happen all the time. Do not just take their word for it. Just because somebody is a quote unquote professional does not necessarily mean they know what the fuck they're doing. So trust your gut. Trust your gut. Investigate. Read up on it. What are they saying the diagnosis is and why? You have the right to question it. So for example, one time, and this is way back in my early career when I wasn't really, because they never taught us, I had somebody come in that was presenting borderline. No, it turned out they were traumatized by their crazy ass motherfucking family. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you can only go by what the client tells you, but as the story finally starts coming out, the diagnosis can change. So somebody who's sticking to this diagnosis going, no, this is what they have and this is going to be it. That's a load of shit. It's like, as more information comes in, okay, well, now what's really going on? Oh, okay, it's not borderline, it's trauma. What the, wow. Okay, glad I got that information. Now I know how to treat this. So yeah, you want to read up on everything. You kind of have to become your own, what's the word I'm looking for? Advocate, therapist in a way. It's like, you've got to do your own education. And the thing that pisses me off about psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, etc., is they treat it like we're supposed to be hiding all this information that you guys shouldn't be accessing. Bullshit. If somebody gave a medical diagnosis, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be like, let's read up on this disease and see if this fits. Let's see if this person really knows what the fuck they're talking about. And in some cases, they don't. You cannot just trust because they're quote unquote professionals that they really know what they're doing. So you got to trust your gut. And you got to read up on whatever it is they're giving you as, oh, and that's the other thing. Okay. All right. So hypochondria. Always focusing in on the physical stuff. Okay, what causes the hypochondria though? It's trauma! It's trauma! And if they bothered to look at that, they could refer them to a trauma therapist to help with that. When somebody hyper focuses in on physical issues, oh my God, oh my leg, oh my head, my heart, my this, my that, and there's never anything wrong, why the hell are these physicians, which by the way get less than 3 weeks of mental health counseling information in their getting their license, seriously, they then shove all these meds at them, put them on all these psych meds, when really what is needed is talk therapy and trauma therapy to work through whatever trauma that caused the person to transfer it onto the body. The body keeps score. Bessel van de Kolk. Great book. Read it. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of diagnoses. And here's the other thing. Trauma creates autoimmune issues. Okay. It creates a whole bunch gastrointestinal issues. It exacerbates Crohn's. It exacerbates irritable bowel. There's a whole bunch of stuff that it exacerbates that really needs to be taken care of and not just dismissed and not just written off as, oh, you're a hypochondriac, blah, 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 blah. Fuck you, get out of the profession. You know what I'm saying? It just, don't get me started. So anyway, there's that. All right, so I think I'm going to start questions. Are we there? I can't see. Oh, yep, we're there. Okay, so I'm going to start questions. Also, I forgot to tell you, Dwayne from Dad Surviving Divorce and I are going to be doing this Thursday at 6 a.m. on his channel because he's up that early. I'm up that early. I'm walking the dog. But we're going to be doing a show on his channel about adult children who have been duped by the narcissistic parent wanting to reconnect with the other parent and how to go about doing that, because that can be a minefield. So anyway, we're going to do that. So, all right. So going on to the questions. All right. So thanks, you guys. Sorry, I kind of rambled. All right. It's traumatic to go to therapists who don't get trauma. Yes. Invalidate and gaslight. Also, yes. How do we deal with that in order to go seek help again? So one of the biggest things that we tend to do as victims or targets of abuse is we immediately assume it's us. We're bad, we're wrong, we're this, we're that, right? Nope, it's not you. It's that therapist. I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard therapists talk and I'm sitting here going, please, please remove yourself from my profession. Please get the fuck out. Please. You don't have the empathy. You don't have the knowledge. You don't bother studying. You see where I'm going with that? So it's them. It's not you. It's them. If you don't like them, if they are invalidating, if they're gaslighting, you need to realize it's not you, it's them. And go find a good trauma therapist that will have the empathy to understand it from your perspective, not from their preconceived perspective, from your perspective. That's what you're looking for. So is that impossible? No. Is it really important? Absolutely. And the best way to find a good therapist is word of mouth. Read the reviews, word of mouth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Find people that have had good luck with them, and again, not all therapists are for all people. I'm not for all people. I am too, what's the word I'm looking for? Blunt. That's a good way to put it. I'm too blunt because I don't play. It's like, no, ain't nobody got time for that. I'm not going to be playing. So if somebody comes in and wants to tell a story and poor me and blah, 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 I'm going to stop them cold and I'm going to go, what's the real issue? And sometimes they're like, oh my God, nobody's ever said that to me. Great, let's work through this. And sometimes they're like, screw you, I want to tell my story. And it's like, well, okay, you're not going to get anywhere. So I'll let you do it for 1 or 2 sessions, but we're going to start working on shit, like real shit, because you don't have time and I don't have time. So there we go. But I'm not for everybody. Okay, because I don't sugarcoat shit. I don't. You guys know that. But, some other therapists, a little gentler approach, that might be the therapy for you. Do you see where I'm going? So you trust your gut. You trust your gut. You go with a therapist that works with you. It's a collaboration. It's a collaboration, unless they're stuck, in which case, yeah, you kind of got to give them that push to get them out of the stuck so that they can start working on the real issue. So, okay, so it's not you. That's how you go seek help again. You never assume that it's you. It's like, okay, this is where it went south. This is, they invalidated. They created more trauma. They gaslit. They rewrote history. They invalidated me. They didn't let me feel like I was telling, what was going on. And, okay, it's time to go find a therapist that works. So yeah, so there's that. So, and the difference is that, okay, so, because I can hear people going, well, but you just said that you kicked this person in the ass because they were telling a story. So what I do is I go, yes, your story is 100% valid. And now what? We can't fix the past. We can only fix this moment moving forward. So yes, these people all did all this. What do you need to do to move forward? What do you need to do to get unstuck? Because usually when we're stuck, it's because we're living in the past and we're replaying it over and over and over and over again. And that never is going to get us to where we want to go. So, okay. So next question. After experiencing a lifetime of generational narcissistic, sociopathic, and borderline abuse, is it possible to have such a thing as fleas? Yes. Oh my God. So yes, from both NPD and ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder. So yeah, you can have fleas from any maladaptive behavior. Absolutely. So a flea is a behavior that we don't want. So for example, narcissists love to teach us to scream at people, to rage, because that's the only emotion they understand. So yeah, we pick up fleas from them. We pick up little, behaviors or histrionic behaviors that maybe our parents did, coming unglued when we really don't need to be coming unglued. We just need to be like, oh, okay, this is kind of weird, that kind of thing. So yeah, we do absolutely pick up fleas, and those can be worked on, and as long as you're willing to work on those fleas and work on where you got them from, then yes, you can get rid of them. Absolutely. And again, it would take a good trauma therapist. Absolutely. How do I find a good therapist to give tools for life and healing? So far, mine have promised to work on tools, trauma, and help me go back to life, but they just gaslight in exchange for tons of money. So here's the deal. When I get somebody in front of me, it's no different than when I talk to you guys. I go, here's the list of books. Here's what you need that's going to help you, depending on what's going on. I mean, it depends, honestly. If it's narcissistic abuse, then the first thing I do is go, let me help you understand narcissism. Object of My Affection is in My Reflection, Coping with a Narcissist by Raquel Lerner. Read it. And that's usually where we start, especially if they're new to this, like they haven't ever considered that their partner was a narcissist, or that their parent was a narcissist, or that their boss was a narcissist, or their friend was a narcissist, or whatever. So I help them understand what the heck we're dealing with here. What is this NPD? What is this narcissism? What is this really? It's not what is, talked about on social media or the movies or whatever. What is this? So Object of My Affection is in My Reflection, Coping with a Narcissist by Raquel Lerner. Excellent book for that. Another book that I like to recommend when people are, needing tools to deal with somebody who is just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, completely cray-cray, doing the raging, doing the weird salad. My Freudian slip is showing. The word salad, not the weird salad. Well, it could be weird salad. But when they're doing the word salad and all of that, is Stop Walking on Eggshells by Randy Krieger. So it's mostly for borderline, but it can work with narcissism as well, because they try to hook us with these circular arguments that are just insane. And so I teach gray rock, no response. Uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. No matter what they throw at you, no matter what name they throw at you, no matter what, you wait for your opportunity and then you walk out with no emotion. And that cuts off their narcissistic supply, and that will leave them in a rage because they're not getting what they want, and you're not feeding, do not feed the narcissist. So yeah, there's that. There's The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker, which is all about codependency. Are you getting your self-esteem from taking care of somebody else? Or worse, does it look like that? Because if one of you goes away, boop, boom, bam, you fall flat on your face. So I give tools the first session, and I assign homework assignments the first session. I want you to write and burn a letter to your abuser. Well, but it wasn't that bad. You know what? Sometimes when we can actually get it out of our head and get it onto paper and we hear it out loud, it becomes real. So I have them write and burn a letter to their abuser. Sometimes it's a go fuck you letter. Sometimes it's just a this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is how I feel, et cetera, letter. And then eventually I have them write a letter that's go fuck you letter, taking back your power, which is the fuck you asshole, you did this, and this at the very, very end. You know what? You're not living in my head rent free one more minute. Fuck the fuckity fuck out of fucking fuck you. No. Goodbye. Get out of my head. And then you trot it out to the barbecue, you light it on fire, you let it go. So I give them tools immediately. And if they're not doing that, fire them. You should be working on homework. So here's the thing. Talk therapy is great. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful to be able to go and vent. And sometimes I do let clients do that if that is what is appropriate. So they'll vent. Oh, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. But if they're coming for like more than 2 sessions and the same thing, that's when I go, okay, stop. We're not going to get better with this. So let's move forward. What can we do in the here and the now? Do you see where I'm going with that? But so if they're just letting you sit there and just, regurgitate, chew the cud, so does country girl, chew the cud, about what happened, and never move forward, then they're just taking your money and you're not getting better. So Assigning homework assignments. Okay, clinicians, if you're listening to this, assign homework assignments. Give them something to do, to work on, to stimulate this, to allow them to vocalize, to allow them to access. Yes, this was bad. Yes, this was real. Holy shit, now that I've written it, oh my God, I can see it. I can hear it when I read it out loud. And I can start working on letting it go. So there is that. Yeah, you can fire them. Just fire them, and find somebody. Ask them somebody. So when I talk about finding a good trauma therapist, you want to interview them as much as they interview you. So what is your way of doing things? Do you assign homework assignments? What is your experience in trauma? What is your modality? What do you use? Do you use cognitive behavioral therapy? Do you do DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy? Are you doing EMDR? Are you doing EFT? What's the modality? And you want to be able to move forward and feel like you are moving forward every session. That's the one cool thing I love, is that when my clients leave my office, inevitably they'll come back and they'll be like, holy shit, I was a little overwhelmed because you gave me so much, but I had stuff I could work with and I feel so much better. That's what you want. That is what you want. That is what you want to leave that office feeling empowered, and you want to leave that office with a shield or a spear, psychologically speaking, that you feel like, okay, I've got some tools. I can work with these now, and I can practice these, and I can feel safe with these. That's what you want. If they're not giving you that, fire them. All right, hope that answered that question. Can mild adult autism be Yes, it can be misdiagnosed as narcissism, absolutely. For someone who, for example, someone who procrastinates and memory and decision-making skills are so bad, maybe it's autism. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I read the two criteria. It's like, well, here's autism and here's narcissism, and here's the one time that they overlap with the not recognizing somebody else's wants or needs, right? But the rest of it, the narcissism, whoo, yeah, no, that does not resemble autism at all. So yeah, you want to go to the Mayo Clinic. If you want good information on these disorders, go to the Mayo Clinic and look up the criteria for all of these different disorders and compare them. That's what I'm saying. Education is king. Education is freedom. Education is power, man, because then nobody can fuck with you. Because if you know what you're talking about and somebody else tries to come in and be like, oh, I know everything and I know what I'm talking about, and you're like, they can't manipulate you. So yeah, go to the Mayo Clinic, type in Mayo Clinic, and then you type in whatever it is you're looking at, autism or narcissism or, whatever, and it'll pop up the information you need to have. So that's a good place to go. Okay, I became a hypochondriac after being misdiagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome when I had gallstones. Oh God, ow. Now I seem to be hyper-focused on my health, not surprising, and have become a hypochondriac. How do I fix this? So, oh boy, this is undoing the damage. So when a kid or anybody else is going, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and an adult or somebody in a position of power says, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not, and then it turns out, yes, it is, yes, it is, yes, it is, that is a trauma that makes you hyper-focused, that makes you hyper-alert, so that's PTSD. So being misdiagnosed with IBS when you in fact had gallstones, which is a major health crisis thing, that's terrible. My God, I hope you're better. It causes PTSD, and we become hyper-focused, hypersensitive. We're like, okay, is this wrong? Wait a minute. Well, the doctor got this wrong, so are they going to get this wrong? So wait, what's going on with this? And we do, and it is a symptom of PTSD. When somebody tells me that they are super focused on their health, I know there is a trauma back there, whether it is a family wound trauma or whether it's some asshole doctor that misdiagnosed something. You betcha. So it's PTSD. It's hypervigilance. And the way to fix that is you start having a conversation with your body. Write it a letter. Dear body, I am really sorry that this stupid doctor misdiagnosed the gallstones as IBS. I promise you I will listen to you from now on. I will trust you. And I'm sorry that I didn't when this happened. And I love you, and please let's stay in touch. So you start a conversation with your body. And when you are feeling nervous about something, really check in with your body. How is it feeling? Is this real or not? You're going to have to ask your gut. So remember, the gut is a simple yes or no answer to a yes or no question. The heart and the head tell stories, and the heart and the head will be like, oh my God, it's cancer. Oh my God, this, oh my God, that. Oh, da, 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 da. Stop. Okay, gut, is this something I need to be worried about? Deep breath in. Yes or no? What's the first answer? Go with that. So you want to work on the PTSD around that. You want to work about the anger that these people created by not believing you, by not really looking into it. So yeah, so write and burn, write and burn, write and burn. Get into a dialogue with your body. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. And really start learning to trust yourself. It's really, hypochondria is an inability to trust. Really, when you're hypochondria, there's an inability to trust. It's like you're not trusting. And that makes sense because somebody violated that trust. So, when a doctor violates that trust, yeah, we become hypervigilant. We become, oh my God, is this it? Kind of thing. So really start working on trusting your gut. Really start working on trusting your body. It's like if something feels off, go get it checked. But if it's going, well, but no, it's off. Well, but no, it's off. Even though you've had it checked, that's when you're going to have to be like, okay, body, shh, what's going on? What are you scared of? What's the fear? What's happening? So get back in touch with that. That's getting back in touch with those emotions is going to be really big. And the biggest thing is trusting yourself. That's the big thing. So yeah, you got to work on that. And it's going to take time. Get with a good trauma therapist. Again, get with a good trauma. This was trauma. This was a trauma. You bet your bippy. Okay. Can someone with dissociative identity disorder be misdiagnosed with BPD? Have you ever seen it happen before? How did they fix it? So dissociating can be a part of BPD because they're both rooted in trauma. This is really, trauma causes so much problems. It really does. If I could wave a magic wand and make all the fucking abusers just go somewhere else, I think I would. So yes, it can be misdiagnosed or it can be comorbid. Okay. So again, you want to work on the trauma. You want to work on loving yourself 110%. So BPD, the main thing about that is not the fear of abandonment. The fear of abandonment. It's being abandoned, being left, being alone, that whole thing. So with DID, different personalities are created to cope with situations. Like one might be really good at dealing with trauma. One might be really good at dealing with sadness. One might be really good at dealing with whatever. So you want to work on the original trauma. You want to work on trusting your gut. You want to work on being able to access all of your emotions. I think that's the really important thing. When somebody is growing up in an environment and they've got BPD and it's traumatic, there's just abuse going on, there's trauma going on, they're very often not heard, not respected. They have to go to these maladaptive behaviors to get their needs met. So it's really about getting with a good trauma therapist, making sure your needs are getting met, making sure that you are doing self-care and that you are learning how to deal with all the different emotions and all the different things so that you're not doing maladaptive behavior. And also if it's DID, that you're able to be safe and be happy, while you're going through this. It's a weird balancing act. It really is. So again, get with somebody who is good in DID, dissociative identity disorder. And if it's BPD, get with dialectic behavioral therapy. So, but get with somebody that understands all this stuff. That's the most important part. And yes, can it be fixed? Yeah, it can. So you just got to get with somebody who knows what they're doing. That is the most important thing. So for both, actually. And when I've seen it with BPD, now, when I first started my career, I used to say, nope, doesn't work. Nope, doesn't work. Nope, haven't seen anybody get better. If the person with BPD is on the lower end of the spectrum and they do the hard work on the original trauma and they get that it's not them, that it's these people over here that caused the behaviors, the maladaptive behaviors in order to get the needs met. If they're willing to work on that, then yes, they do get better. Absolutely. With dialectic behavioral therapy. That is the best modality for BPD. Once a week group, once a week individual. Super important. Once somebody has slipped down into the malignant end of that, stick a fork in them, they're done because there's no desire to get better. It's the perpetual victim, or it's the, perpetually, I'm going to punish you and make you wrong kind of thing. So when they get down to that witch / warlock or queen / king. So that's that. So, okay. So yes, you can, if they're willing to work on it. Absolutely. And with DID, yeah, absolutely. So just get with a good therapist that understands those two. All right. What do I think about EMDR? You don't do EMDR. What sort of modalities and techniques do you do most? So I do CBT. I am talk therapy, but I assign a whole bunch of homework assignments. So I'm having people write and burn letters. I'm having people do the journals. I'm having people do the workbooks. We talk about that. They'll come in, they'll bring the workbooks in with them, and we'll work through them together. And that is often the time when they have these amazing epiphanies, because it's safe, finally, to talk about it and to get it out and to acknowledge it. Sometimes we'll do guided imagery, working with the inner child, just like I teach you guys. It's like, have a chat with the inner child, that kind of thing. EMDR, I love EMDR. I think it's great. I love EFT. I think that's great too. I don't care, how do I put this? I don't care how you get there, just get there. It's like, I don't care what the modality is, as long as it works for you. And EMDR does not work for everybody. Some people don't like it. Some people don't like EFT. Some people don't like DBT. Some people don't like CBT. So you've got to find the modality that works for you. So yeah, so I do CBT. I do cognitive behavioral therapy. What's the thought? What are you thinking? What's the thought? What's the belief? What's the mistaken thought? What's the mistaken belief? So like, for example, I'll have a client come in and sit down in front of me, and they'll be like, I'm ugly, I'm hideous, I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, whoa, 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 stop. Who the hell taught you that? Well, I did. I've always thought that. Nope, stop. Babies don't pop out of the womb hating themselves. Who taught you that? Where did you get this mistaken thought? Where did you get this mistaken belief? Who told you that? Sometimes they don't know, because the trauma happened at such a small age, there's no real recollection of it. Or like earlier, DID. Whoop. Popped out of the body. Nope, not going to hang out for this abuse. I don't remember it. It's too much, right? So that's what we work on. So that's how I do that. Okay. My therapist is able to see me every other week. Very busy therapist. I feel I need weekly therapy. She's wonderful at helping me a lot. What should I do? Tell her. Tell her I need to get in to see you every week. That's what I think is going to be most helpful for me. But also listen to see why she's doing it. Now, for me, what I do is I tend to do every other week, not because I'm super busy. I am. I see 40 people a week, but it's because I want people to have the time to go home and practice the mirror work, practice the letter writing, practice working in the books, etc. And it's so funny, because one time I had a client that was like, no, I want to see you every week. And I was like, okay, well, we'll try it, but I'm telling you, you're not going to have time to do all these homework assignments. Next week rolled around, and I get a phone call the day before the session. Yeah, can we take that out another week? I didn't actually have time to get to all of that. And I was like, okay, sweetie, no problem. So popped them in. So that's, you do every other week sometimes, so you can give the client the chance to actually practice this stuff. This is what I tell people. Therapy is not in a vacuum. It's like practicing the piano, okay? You can't just practice when you're with the maestro and expect to get better just doing that. I mean, I suppose you could, but it would take a hell of a long time. So what you want to do is, when you leave that session, you want to go out and practice what you've learned. That's the important thing. So I was watching, I know it's my new obsession. I love Ozzy Osbourne. I finally discovered Jack and Ozzy's World Detour, which I thought was awesome. But he saw a group of kids in, I think it was Nashville, and they played Crazy Train on just every single band instrument you could possibly think of. And it sounded really good. I was like, whoa, you guys are good. And so the kids were like, Ozzy, how do we get to be good like you? And he's like, oh, you got to practice. And I loved it, because the music teacher was like, I'm sorry, Ozzy, what did you say? And then he said it again. And she's like, I'm sorry, say it again. For those in the back who can't hear it. So it's practice. You want to get good at anything, whether you want to get good at music, or whether you want to get good at life, or whether you want to get good at not being triggered by these fucking asshole abusers. You practice. You gotta practice. You gotta take the stuff that you learn in session, walk out the door, and set aside time to practice. So what I tell people is, like, you are worth an hour of your day. And if not an hour, then a half an hour. Or if not a half an hour, at least 20 minutes. Something. Don't shortchange yourself, because you're wasting your time in therapy if you're just walking out the door and setting it in your car and then la, 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 I'm not going to think about it, la, 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 I'm not going to do it, la, la. Why? Go home and practice. This is no different than learning a new instrument. You're learning a new instrument. You are flexing your muscles. You are flexing muscles that you may never have used before. The no muscle, saying no and meaning it. The boundary muscle, here's the boundary, don't fucking cross it. The I love myself muscle. Holy shit, I love myself. What is that? Woo! You know, it all takes practice. You're not going to just walk out of the office and suddenly the clouds part and the light comes down. You're like, oh, I'm cured. No, it doesn't work that way. You got to practice. Just like Ozzy told the kids, you got to practice. You want to get good at something? Practice. So there's that. But do talk to the therapist. You know, if you feel you need to come in once a week, and sometimes some clients do. Sometimes when the abuse has been particularly nasty, and they need support, once a week is appropriate. Absolutely. If they're kind of baby steps, right? And they're just kind of sort of getting their balance, maybe they need that little oomph to give them that little lift of, hey, you've got this. You've got this. Keep going. You know, that kind of thing. But you don't want to let them do that for too long, because you want the client to get up on their own feet and be able to kind of toddle off on their own, and then come back and talk about how that went, you know, and okay, what went right? What went wrong? What do we need to change? What's happening? How are you doing? What are you feeling? You know, that kind of thing. So, but do talk to the therapist. I think that would be a really, really good idea. Okay. How do you work on exercises if you've been severely shamed for all the ways you look, write, and speak, right down to the sound of your voice? So that is when you've got to get with a good trauma therapist. Seriously. Because yes, that happens. That absolutely. I've got some clients that are like, I can't look in the mirror. What do I do instead? And I'm like, okay, I just want you to say it out loud. Hi, Chris. I really like you. Have a good day. That's it. You start baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. So, and remember, it's in Pete Walker's book, CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving. I think it's chapter 3. I could be wrong, but I think in chapter 3 is where he talks about putting the shame, putting the blame, putting the guilt, putting the anger, putting everything back onto the abuser. It's not you. It's not you. So you got to start small. Start where you can, wherever that is. Start there. So if you can say it out loud, say it out loud. If you can't say it out loud, then try writing. If you can't write it, then try singing. If you can't sing it, then try something else. But do get with a good therapist to help you break through that. The way I like to look at it, and the way I tell my clients to look at it, and P. Walker talks about this too, you've got to get angry at the abuse. This is why I swear like a sailor, but especially when I hear injustices, because it pisses me right the fuck off. How dare someone tell you that you're not beautiful? How dare someone tell you that you can't write? How dare someone tell you that your speaking is wrong? Fuck them. How dare someone tell you that the sound of your voice, the voice that God gave you, or the universe, or whatever your belief system is, or Boofa Baba, or whatever, is not good enough? Fuck the fuck out of fuckity. Fuck you, asshole, abuser, motherfucker, pieces of shit. Get angry at that. You have a right to exist. You have a right to exist. And your voice is beautiful. Your looks are gorgeous. You are God's gift, literally, to this planet. Because we are all children of the universe. We are the stuff of stars. And who the hell are they? Who the hell are they to tell us otherwise? You have a right to exist. You have a right to love yourself. You have a right to like how you look, like how you sound, like how you write, like how you sing. You have a right. Don't you ever forget that. So get with a good therapist. Work on that. Work on that abuse. That was abuse. And work on putting it back onto them. And start reading the CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving. And that was a great chapter. That's the one that helps most of my clients, is when they finally get to that point where they're like, who the fuck are they? And I'm like, yes. So yes, anger is good, because anger shows us where we've been hurt. It's just how we use it that can be a problem. So, but with this, and I'm not saying put it back on them like in person. That's never going to work. I'm saying put it back on them. Realize none of this was you. This was all them. This was all them. This was their bullshit way of controlling you. So Get with a good trauma therapist. Okay, we are just about at the top of the hour, so I'm going to call it good for today. Next week, what I want to do, I want to talk about detachment. So Dwayne and I are going to be talking about adult children possibly getting back into contact with the other parent, the non-abusive parent, right? So we're going to be talking about that. But I also want to talk about being able to detach. So when we realize we've been abused, or we realize that someone we love is in an abusive relationship and they are now acting like the abuser, how to detach, how to let that go, how to help yourselves heal, because that's a tough one. So we're going to talk about detachment next week. So do look for Dwayne and I on Thursday at 6 a.m. on his channel, not my channel, his channel, which is Dad Surviving Divorce on YouTube. And I think we're going to make that kind of a weekly thing. I'm going to come over to his channel and he's going to come over to my channel, and we're going to do the yin and the yang and the whole thing like that. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, you guys have a great week. Be good to yourselves. I hope to see you on Thursday because he's doing it live so you can ask questions and all that sort of good stuff. So anyway, that's it. All right, my loves, be good. Love yourselves. The best revenge is to live well. All right, guys, have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.